I have seen things through telescopes that have blown my mind. This is doing that. This is providing me with that personal level of wow factor that I haven't felt since very early in my astronomy experience. I'm excited because tonight I'm going to be working with the SmartEye from Pegasus Astro. It's powered by SkySafari, and what this is a way of looking through a telescope using a camera, but also allowing you to see it via an eyepiece, which is very different than the normal experience that you would have in astrophotography. It's much closer to what you would experience with visual observation. And to be quite honest, I'm not the best astrophotographer out there. I enjoy astrophotography to some degree, but honestly, it's been frustrating for me over the years. And since receiving the SmartEye from Pegasus Astro and SkySafari, I have kind of felt like I'm back to my roots. Now I'm working here with a Stellarvue SVX130T. It actually is at the very limit of the focal ratio that is recommended by the SmartEye, which is f7. So we're kind of right on the cusp of it being a little bit too slow, but it is a 5-inch aperture and I'm getting some pretty decent results. So I'm excited to show you what I see through my telescope. So come along with me and check out my views through the SmartEye. So right now I just moved the telescope from the M13 globular cluster to my next object. All right, the next object that we're going to be moving to is M27, which is the Dumbbell Nebula. And this one is facing towards the southwest, and it's kind of like between these two trees that are on either side of me here. And I'm just going to use the remote from my mount, and I'm going to slew to those objects. We are going to take our first look through the SmartEye. Live view is where you want to start all your observations, just to get the object in frame. Now I've used the traditional method of doing the alignment tonight on how to find objects in the night sky. So I'm using my hand controller on my Celestron CGE mount. It's actually a pretty old mount. The SmartEye is capable of connecting through SkySafari to do plate solving, and that would allow you to basically determine where you're facing in the night sky, then connect to the mount and slew the mount to a particular location based on the SmartEye and its coordinates. I have not gone through that process tonight. I'm just using it very basically as an eyepiece. In fact, most of the observation I've done early on tonight were done through my Stellarvue eyepieces. I only added the SmartEye once I was aligned. I am going to go to my phone and I am going to record the process of doing a live stack. It's very simple on the SmartEye, and in the future videos I do plan on providing you a full going through the menu process of how to do this. But tonight I'm just going to kind of do it over here. I simply go to the eyepiece, I click on the little dial on the side. They're calling it the Astro Crown, which is similar to what you would see on a watch. And then once you've clicked on the Astro Crown, you're going to go to New Observation. And as soon as you click on New Observation, it's going to start the process of doing a live stack. From that point forward, you really don't have to do much of anything. The telescope is simply going to continue to move as a result of the mounts. In this case, I've got an equatorial mount. You could also use an alt-azimuth mount, which is also a way of tracking the night sky if you've got a go-to style telescope. You do, however, need to have some level of tracking to get this level of hands-off activity. There are a few people who are taking images with SmartEye through Dobsonian style telescopes, but the process is significantly more difficult. You really should have a tracking mount of some sort. and your optics should be at least as fast as f7. Now this SVX130T is at the very limit at f7, but I am getting some really good results with it. So I'm already starting the process of doing the next observation. I slewed the telescope and it immediately picked up the exact location of the Dumbbell Nebula M27, and I started the process of doing the live stack, and let's see what it looks like here. So looking at the SmartEye web interface gives us a chance to see the object. So far we've got about 1 minute and 50 seconds worth of observations completed. You can see it's kind of a black and white image as of right now, and over the next few minutes it will start to bring out the color of this particular object. And now that we've spent some time collecting a little bit more light, you can start to make out some of the color, as you can see now in this live view, or I should say this observation view that we're seeing here. And the detail, once again, as I said earlier, through the eyepiece is actually significantly better than you would see on your screen right now, or on my phone even for that matter. The overall image quality here is unparalleled. This is something that's currently collecting subframes over and over, and the more time that you provide it, the better the image gets. So let's take a quick break and we'll stop back in a few minutes and see if we can see an improvement in the image quality. In fact, we can even learn a little bit more about it with the audio from SkySafari to kind of give us an experience while looking through the telescope. So here we go.
Few deep sky objects are as mysterious and appealing as M27. It is a planetary nebula or cloud of gas being evolved by a star. M27 looks like a small elliptical cloud, quite bright in binoculars. Small telescopes reveal the two lobes, which is how the dumbbell got its name. Still larger scopes show an empty portion near the middle that is filled with a faint gas. What is the major axis is now seen to be the minor axis of a larger ellipse of faint blue gas. M27 is one of the larger planetary nebula. The name was selected by Herschel and was based on his observation that these look like the faded disks of planets. Of course, there's no real connection with planets. It's just a name that stuck.
Pretty cool that I get to have that, voiceover experience. Now looking through the SmartEye, I can see I am, in fact, in my live view, looking directly at the Ring Nebula. It's slightly out of center. So what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to grab my hand controller and I'm going to slew the telescope slightly to put it in the middle of the eyepiece. So as you are looking here at my screen, I have my phone recording an image. You're seeing the very earliest stages of M57, the Ring Nebula. Now the Ring Nebula is a planetary nebula that is basically the death of a sun-like star. So our sun, for example, is about halfway through its lifetime. When our sun dies, it will die as a planetary nebula, not a supernova, a planetary nebula, and in the center of that is a white dwarf. And if you kind of zoom in on this and you look, you can make out the very beginning stages of that white dwarf. And now, as of now, with this, only 1 minute or so and 50 seconds worth of stacking, you're getting a black and white image. As this live stacking process continues, you'll eventually get a color image, which is well beyond what you could see with your eyes. So I have looked at objects, through up to a 36-inch telescope, and it's amazing that even here in my light-polluted backyard, under a full moon, by the way, I'm getting an image of objects that rivals what I would see at my personal dark sky location, which is Cherry Springs State Park, Bortle, I think 1 or 2, and I have seen things through telescopes that have blown my mind. This is doing that. This is providing me with that personal level of wow factor that I haven't felt since very early in my astronomy experience. You know, honestly, thinking back about when things were exciting for me, I would have to say it was 2014 or 2015, the last time I felt as excited about what I was doing as I am right now. So, you know, 10 years ago when I was just getting started in astrophotography, that was exciting. I could finally see these objects for real. The fact that you can do that live, the fact that you can do that without any effort whatsoever. Let's face it, I'm making a video right now. I'm not doing anything. This is a live stacking process. And as you can see here on my phone, like, we're getting color, we're getting an object, we get to now learn about it. The cool thing about this is I can connect this to SkySafari. So not only am I looking at it here through my guest web browser, but if I open up SkySafari and I go under the Observe tab, under the Observe tab in SkySafari, I have SkySafari Pro here, you can actually see SmartEye is an option, and I can open up the settings webpage and I can control the SmartEye directly here through my SkySafari app. And I can make changes to the camera. I can change the exposure time. I can change it from mono to color. Now, that's only going to give me an image difference. The sensor itself is a color sensor. I can change the gain from high to low. I can take calibration frames from here, which I did take dark frames before tonight. I can change the display brightness itself so that when I look through here, which, by the way, I want to be very clear with this. When I look through the SmartEye, what I see through SmartEye is a 90-degree field of view. What I also see through SmartEye is that my eyes are allowed to look at a very, very high contrast OLED screen, and I can focus in on that object and I see no pixels. All right, let me be very clear. I see no pixels. The smallest of stars look like the smallest of stars, and they're just as dim as they would look if you were looking through a traditional eyepiece. It's pretty impressive. You have to kind of get used to the way to look through the eyepiece. Some have mentioned about like coma. I don't necessarily disagree with the fact that you can see that if you're trying to look for it. But the difference is you just move your head around and you look at what's in the center of your field of view and it goes away. The difference is just how you observe, not necessarily that you're going to get the exact same experience as an eyepiece. So just be careful with what you see out there as far as reviews. Yes, there are some interesting ways of looking through the eyepiece, but once you learn how to look through it, it's crystal clear. The other things I can do here is I can change this. I can make the Wi-Fi direct from SmartEye, where I'm actually acting like this is the Wi-Fi hub, which is what I'm doing right now. I can also connect it to my home Wi-Fi, which is something that I'll show in a future video. You can connect it via ASCOM Alpaca. This is key if you're in that expert category. If you want to take images through the eyepiece that are more on the like what you would do in traditional astrophotography, you still can. And the sensor here, very capable. It's one of the best sensors out there in terms of its sensitivity. And there are also in your SD card, which I've got a SD card in SmartEye right now, you're downloading all of these files as well. So you can go back and post-process them if you want. But I'm just showing you tonight the process of the live stacking and its capabilities. You can change some other system settings here under SmartEye, and let's just take a moment here and go back to the browser. So here once again, we're seeing that stacking has now continued. You're getting a pretty decent image of the Ring Nebula from here in the web app. And I'll just download this at this moment here and save it to my phone so that you can see on your screen here now what it looks like. So this is a good amount of time that you might see when you're out doing outreach. So if you're somebody who goes out and works with the public, 8 to 10, maybe 15, tops 20 minutes that you're looking at the same object, you're getting a really good experience in that time. The image that I'm looking at here, once again, is just phenomenal compared to what you're seeing even on your screen. Let's say I'm done with M57 Ring Nebula. What we'll do then is we'll slew to another object. So next up is going to be the Andromeda Galaxy. One thing I want to mention about the Andromeda Galaxy is that it's very, very large, and it's like 6 full moons across in its width. And this particular sensor, the IMX533, is not actually a very big sensor. It's square, and as a result, we're not going to get a full view, especially at this focal length here of this telescope. We're not going to get a full view of Andromeda, and as a result, I just want to kind of temper the experience here a little bit, that there are some objects that are simply too big if you've got a longer focal length. And even if you have a shorter focal length telescope, some objects are simply too big to be able to get in a single field of view. At this time, there's no mosaic mode, but I think that there's going to be a very likely chance that in the future, you'll be able to take a mosaic of a particular object. Now, would you be able to see that in the live view? I'm not sure, but at least I think it'll be available. And if you wanted to, you could go to alpaca mode, and you could use more of a traditional astrophotography method and connect to something like Nina, and you should be able to do a mosaic even with the SmartEye as it currently stands. But I'm going to slew now to M31, the Andromeda Galaxy. As it's slewing here, one thing to also keep in mind when you're doing this type of observation is that your focus is now going to be for the camera. So when you are trying to do observations like this, to be able to use something like a field flattener or a focal reducer, you would need to be looking into the back of the telescope directly without a diagonal. I'm personally trying to figure out exactly how that would kind of work from a visual observation type of standpoint. It would be nice to be able to have some sort of a diagonal while doing an observation and being able to reduce the focal length with a focal reducer. So just a thought. So I'm definitely able to see Andromeda in the live view. Clearly, the core of the Andromeda Galaxy is very visible. And now I'm just going to use my mount to center the object. And one click, new observation, second click, and we're off to doing a new observation. It's really that simple. And within the next few seconds, I'm going to get my first image of the Andromeda Galaxy. And there's my first image, everybody. Pretty cool. You can see it here now on my phone. The Andromeda Galaxy's core is the bright spot there, and then you'll start to see the spiral arms of the galaxy forming around this central core. And within 30 seconds, we're already starting to get some of that effect. And within the next few minutes here, we should start to see things like dust lanes and all sorts of features of the Andromeda Galaxy that, you know, traditionally astrophotography, you might take a number of hours and get an image that's not significantly better than what you'll see here in just a few minutes. It's incredible. And I'm already starting to see on my phone here the beginnings of the dust lanes. So I wanted to take a quick shot here from the other direction. As you can see behind me, there's the telescope and above the tree line there is the full moon. So we are at probably one of the worst times to do some of this imaging as possible, and yet these are the results that we're getting. I have no filter on the SmartEye. It is completely, without a light pollution filter. So the fact that we're getting this kind of imaging simply based on a raw image and the live stacking process and the native processing going on within SmartEye, I'm impressed. I'll let this go a few more minutes and we'll see what the Andromeda Galaxy looks like in about 10 minutes, which is pretty much the same amount of time I would spend on it at any particular outreach event. Okay, so here's an image of about 10 minutes on the Andromeda Galaxy. So as you can see here, we've got the ability to see dust lanes. The image is not completely showing the entirety of the Andromeda Galaxy due to the focal length of the telescope and the smaller sensor size that we have here on the SmartEye. But the image quality overall is pretty good, and I'm fairly happy with the results that I'm seeing. Let's try another one. Let's try the Triangulum Galaxy. Triangulum Galaxy is M33, and it's very close to the Andromeda Galaxy. The Andromeda Galaxy is the closest galaxy to us. The Triangulum is very, very close as well. I believe it's the second closest galaxy, only second to the Andromeda. And it just so happens to be in pretty much the same direction. Unlike Andromeda Galaxy, I am not seeing the Triangulum as clearly in the live view on the Eyepiece. This could be because my mount didn't slew to the proper location. It also could be that it is significantly dimmer than the Andromeda Galaxy is. I was able to see when I created a new observation that the Triangulum was somewhat off center. Once again, I cannot see it in the live view. So I did a short, 30-second to a minute exposure on the new observation, was able to collect a lot more light. And after doing so, I was able to see where the location was. I noticed some of the surrounding stars, and I then used that in live view to properly center those stars that represent the area significantly close to Triangulum, and then I brought it into the center of the eyepiece. So now I'm starting a new observation, and we'll see how Triangulum looks over the next few minutes. All right, already I'm starting to collect some light, and we'll take a look at what it looks like on my phone. So this object is significantly dimmer than the Andromeda Galaxy is. Looking up at the sky, I also can tell you once again, the moon is rising higher and higher in the sky, which is not helping with these observations. It's making it more difficult every minute as the moon gets higher and produces more of its sky glow. I wouldn't call it light pollution, because light pollution I think is reserved for the human created pollution that we see, but it is still a sort of light pollution in the fact that it is making the sky significantly brighter, and as a result it's difficult for the camera to differentiate between what's signal and what is noise. Once again, I am not using a filter of any sort. This is raw, straight from the camera, straight through the telescope. If I were to have a light pollution filter, I could potentially cut down on some of this, but with a broad spectrum object like a galaxy, the usage of any sort of a hydrogen filter would actually be not helpful. So galaxies are significantly more difficult to work with as a general rule of thumb, given light pollution is not as easily mitigated compared to like a nebula, for example, where you have a strong hydrogen alpha signal that you can then isolate and keep that separate from the additional sky glow that's associated with things like streetlights. That being said, I'm still getting a pretty good image, and we'll see where we go in the next few minutes. So we're now at 18 minutes on the Triangulum Galaxy, and the results are starting to come in clear view. And let's just take a quick look at this image. And what I'm seeing here is the spiral arms of the galaxy. I'm starting to get some more color, and you can clearly make out some of the darker dust lanes that are visible throughout the galaxy. Now, in the image that I'm seeing here on my phone, it looks like Triangulum is making up pretty much the entirety of the eyepiece, and this is a perfect object for this telescope and camera combination, honestly. It's one of the objects that you would very likely not be able to see with the naked eye through, a traditional telescope, and it's something that in, the astrophotography world we've been looking at, but to be able to look through an eyepiece at the Triangulum Galaxy in such a way is unheard of. So, perfect example of how SmartEye is bringing the two worlds of astrophotography and visual astronomy together, and it's what I'm personally excited about. From here in the backyard with that moon right behind me here, just starting to peek over the trees, I think it's time to call it quits for the night. It's about 2 a.m. and I've looked at a bunch of different objects already tonight. Please join me and subscribe to the channel. Give this video a like, and please come back and check out more about this SmartEye as well as other backyard observing. Take care and clear skies, everybody. If you're still watching and like videos like this one, please consider becoming a Patreon patron. Memberships start as low as $3 per month, with benefits including opportunities to ask questions of our guests. Also, please consider to like, subscribe, and share this video to help us bring the universe even closer than you think.